Hello, Southern California, and welcome to this week's episode of Right on the Money with Tom Mosley, brought to you by the team of Mosley Wealth Management, based right here in Southern California. I'm your host, Kristin Oakley, here with Tom. He is the president and the founder of Mosley Wealth Management, and we've got a great show for you today. The title of today's show is Draw or Delay the Social Security Dilemma. We know that this is a topic that's on the top of most folks' minds, and so we're going to get all into it today. Tom, my friend, it's great to be here with you. How are you?
I'm doing great. I love talking about Social Security.
I know you do, and I do as well. I used to travel nationwide presenting on this topic, and I know that you are very active doing the workshops in Southern California and really getting into the nitty-gritty. A lot of folks aren't really talking about Social Security anymore since a lot of the strategies did go away in 2015, but that doesn't mean that you don't have questions and that you need answers, and so that's why we're devoting today's entire show to this.
I recently had a brand new client came to us and they said, you know, I was working, and I won't call the name of the firm. It was one of the big box firms, and it was like one of the best compliments we've had to show our impact in teaching on Social Security, and I'm not ashamed of this at all. And they said, well, we'd like some help on our Social Security. And they said, you know, we're not the people that'll help you on Social Security. You need to go to Mosley Wealth Management or somebody like that if you want help on Social Security. I'll wear that as a badge of honor, that we help people on something that's 40% of the average American's income in retirement. Okay, guilty all over the place.
Well, and that's the thing that's mind-blowing. It is such a crucial part of someone's overall financial plan, and it has to be accounted for. And there's so many different combinations of how, when you take it, what that impact could have, not just for you, but for your spouse, potentially for the rest of your family. I mean, because it affects all the other pieces of your financial puzzle.
It does, and we have people come to us on a regular basis. And I 29 years ago, started working with people to make sure they don't run out of income the rest of their life. And that's why Social Security is so cardinal and crucial to everything we do. All of our advisors are trained by the National Social Security Advisors Administration. And we take a module and we pass a test. All 6 of our advisors pass that test. We know what we're talking about when it comes to Social Security, but I have people come in all the time and say, I went to a Social Security workshop. They only talked about it for about 5 minutes, and the guy told me that I needed to file and suspend. Well, file and suspend is something that went away April the 1st of 2016. I mean, that's over 8 years ago, and they're still out there promoting it. They're giving bad information. So it's not only important because the Social Security Administration will not give you advice.
Right.
A lady was in one of my Irvine seminars about 6 months ago now, and she said, could I say something? And it's always scary sometimes, you know, but she said, I work for the Social Security Administration, and what he's telling you is absolutely right. We're not allowed to give advice. We're only allowed to give out information. And the difference is they can't present to you all of your options and the positives and negatives of all of your options like we're going to do in this show. They cannot do that. They can only give you information if you ask the right question and you come up with it. So that's what all of our advisors are really good at, helping you make sure you never run out of income. And the second purpose of what we do that we haven't talked about on the show in a while, to my shame, because I write the shows, but we help you make sure you pay the least you can possibly pay in taxes legally. Not trying to do anything that's called the penitentiary plan. We're trying to make sure that you're paying as little as you're legally required to pay in taxes. So that's what we do as a firm. Income, making sure you never run out of it. Taxes, making sure you pay as little as you're legally required.
And I know we'll probably bring this up at some point in the show, but a lot of folks aren't aware that their Social Security could potentially be taxed. When Social Security was first created, it wasn't supposed to be taxed. Well, now up to 85% of your Social Security benefit could be taxed. That's why you can't afford to look at any of these decisions in a silo. You have to understand that how you make a decision in one area of your financial life will affect all the others, and I think Social Security is a perfect example of that.
Well, I tell people at our seminars, hey, Social Security, just as you have an individual Social Security number, you also have an optimal time, not a maximization time, but an optimal time as when it is best for you to turn your Social Security on. You are different than anybody else. That's why this is one of the areas of investments and financial planning that's It has more fear for me for people who get their advice from Bob at the water cooler, or Bubba the plumber, or Teresa who's in the teacher's lounge, because they're all telling you the truth about their decisions, but their decisions are based on their situation. Yeah. And your situation when it comes to Social Security is different than anybody else's. I think that's a lot of the things we're going to cover in the show.
Absolutely. Well, the way you've structured today's show, I'm excited to get into this with our viewers. We're going to be talking about what happens if you claim your Social Security earlier. Then we'll talk about what happens if you do it later. And then finally, what if waiting till later means less for you? Because we know that that is a top concern a lot of folks are wondering about and having questions about. So let's first talk about taking Social Security early.
Well, sometimes people take Social Security early because you flat out need the money. Now, this lady's since passed away, but over a decade ago, a lady came to me by the name of Gladys, and she brought all of the stuff in. She came in for a retirement blueprint like we offer on this show. And she came in and she put all of her stuff down on my desk, and she started tearing up and crying. Literally, tears were on her cheek. Not boo-hooing, but tears. And she said, I said, are you okay? I thought maybe she had injured herself. She was 64 years old. And I said, are you okay? She said, yeah, I just did my budget last night. That's our target. We need to have that in order to be able to help you. And she said, I'm $400 short every single month. And I said, Gladys, that's okay. That's why you're here. Let's just go through your stuff. So I started going through her documents that she had brought in that we asked people to bring in. We got to her Social Security document, and I said, well, how long have you been drawing the $1,400 a month for Social Security? And she looked at me and she said, I'm not. And I said, well, why not? She said, I went to a Social Security maximization workshop, and they told me never to take my Social Security until I reach 70, because that's when I'll get the maximum. And I wanted to ask her in a loving way, but I found no way to ask it lovingly, and so I didn't ask it. But are you going to eat dirt, or what are you going to eat between now and the time you turn 70 over 6 years? So I told this lady, in her situation, you flat out need the money sometimes. Turn it on early. Don't hesitate. Perfect plans are perfect plans, and perfect plans sometimes don't exist in life. You need the money. If you need the money, you need to go do it. This lady was $400 a month short. My advice to her was go down and turn on your Social Security now. She looked at me. I remember she stood up to leave. She turned around at the door and she said, you know, she said, it just struck me. I'm going to have $1,000 a month extra. She said, that's so wonderful. You know, and she came back and she gave me a hug, you know, and that's what your Social Security situation is, different than anyone else's situation. So you need to get advice about your situation and do what's best for you, not Bob or Bubba or Teresa or whoever you might run into. They're telling you the truth. It's right for them. But what's right for you, it may be good for you to turn it on early simply because you need the money.
What are some of the other situations that make it beneficial often for folks to go ahead and start claiming early?
Well, I wrote down some things so I wouldn't forget. Normally, I don't like to refer to my notes, but some people turn on their Social Security early if they're not working. And I'm talking about from the age of 62 up until full retirement age. You've got to be careful because there's some income limitations that you can only make certain amounts of money. But sometimes people turn on the money earlier so that you can pay off debt. I mean, you just are loaded with debt. Maybe you're planning on retiring at a certain time. We like for people to do that after they've reached full retirement age, because they don't have to battle the income limitations that you have up until your full retirement age. But you've got debt to pay off, and a lot of people have a wise approach to retirement, and they say, I want to get my debt paid off before I go into retirement and have to carry that weight with me all the time when I don't have an income and I'm only living off of my investments. So that could be a very good reason for going ahead and turning on your Social Security, because you're going to use it to pay off debt.
And I just want to presence for folks who may not be aware, when you mention the income limits, it's so fascinating because it's a small amount of income given where we are today in our landscape with inflation. I mean, that's never been adjusted, but basically if you make too much money and you start claiming Social Security prior to your full retirement age, you are going to have to give some of your benefit back to the government.
Let me give you the number. It's $22,320. That's less than $2,000 a month.
That's if you're single, right?
Right, if you're single. will. And so wow, you come in there and you say, well, I've got a job making $100,000. I was planning on turning my Social Security on at 62 because my brother Bubba the plumber told me to go ahead and do it. Well, your brother Bubba the plumber doesn't understand that for every $2 over $22,320, $22,320, those are numbers for 2024. It goes up a little bit every year. For every $2 over that, you're going to pay back $1 of Social Security. That's why I say if you're going to pay off the debt, maybe you wait till your full retirement age, which is 66, 67, or somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know we have a lot more to get into on today's show about, when is the optimal time, because again, there's over 567 mathematical combinations of when you could claim your Social Security benefit. So Tom, for viewers who are watching who want help navigating this important decision, talk specifically about what they can expect when they come in for their complimentary retirement blueprint from a Social Security perspective.
From a Social Security perspective, if you've got it, I like to put together puzzles. I'm sorry, I'm just old, but I used to do it, and I have done it all my life, okay? But the first thing I do is I get the edges in place. Social Security in building a financial plan is getting the edges in place. Knowing what your budget is also really crucial, but then once your budget is there, we want to know what do you have coming in from Social Security that's going to help us meet the budget every single month, because we can pretty much depend on that. I don't think they'll do away with it. I don't think they'll reduce it. I don't know. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's the edges of your plan. And then we talk and we look about, do you have any other assets? Gladys, the lady I was telling you about, had no other assets. So she was pretty much stuck to Social Security. So we had to do what was best for her from an optimal standpoint to turn it on so that she could live off of it, because she was on a fixed income until she passed away a couple of years ago. So that may be your situation, but that's how it fits. And then what are your other assets? Are there other assets we can draw on a little bit? We don't want to draw that down. No one has ever come into my office in 29 years plus of doing this and said, Tom, can you build me a plan so that I can spend all of my money out of my IRA, what we call our play check, so that I'm down to a fixed income and I can live off my Social Security on a fixed income all the way through my 70s and 80s. Nobody's ever asked for that. Please don't ask for that. I don't think it's a good idea. So what we do is that has an impact on when you turn on your Social Security.
Right. So much goes into this. I know we have a lot more to get into on today's show, but for those of you watching, if you would like help navigating this important decision of when you should claim your Social Security, along with any other aspect of your financial plan and planning for retirement, we encourage you to claim your complimentary retirement blueprint from Tom and the team of Mosley Wealth Management. All you need to do is call that number that you see on the bottom of your screen, 866-709-1462. Or if you'd rather not talk to someone right now, but you do have your smartphone handy, if you simply pull it out, you can open up that camera app, point, click, and scan the QR code that you see there down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary retirement blueprint that way as well. When we come back, Tom is going to dive deeply into the benefits or the pros and cons of waiting to take your Social Security till later. Stay with us.
Fiduciary is a big word in our industry, and fiduciary means you act in a client's best interest. At Mosley Wealth Management, you are an individual. You're different than anybody else on this planet. You look different. You've got a different Social Security number. You live at a different address. Everything about you is different. The first visit is just getting to know them, getting to know where they are. We literally start with a blank legal pad. And at the end of that meeting, we just say, okay, you've brought a lot of stuff here. Do you want us to look at this stuff and see what we would recommend? And when I look at statements that people bring me from so-called fiduciaries, and I ask them, I say, why did you get put 50% in this and 50% in this? Many times they'll say, well, that's what the advisor said he likes to do. My question is, would I do this for my mom? Would I do this for my dad? Would I do this for myself? So you really have to sit back sometimes and say, if I were them, if I were sitting on their side of the table, what would I do? And I've literally sat in my office at least once every 2 or 3 weeks and try to put together a case for somebody where it's iffy as to whether they'll make it or not. And you have to ask yourself, what would I do if I were in their situation? And never, ever recommend something that you wouldn't do if you were right where they are.
Welcome back to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. I'm your host, Kristin Oakley. We are talking today about the pros and cons of delaying your Social Security. Should you take it early? Should you take it late? And I know that last time, and Tom, before the break, we were talking about some of the reasons why folks may want to go ahead and take Social Security early, even though that means you get a lesser amount. Let's just run through that list and summarize before we move on to the pros and cons of waiting to take it.
Okay, very good. You might want to take it early if you flat out need the money. If you can use it to pay off debt and it doesn't cause you to have to pay back your Social Security because you're earlier than full retirement age. Another thing to mention is a lot of people are turning it on right now a little bit earlier than they planned just because inflation is dragging them down. Another issue that I've run into is people have healthcare issues, and so they need the money to pay for the extra things that maybe their health insurance doesn't pay for, Medicare doesn't pay for. So health issues could cause you to do that early. And then sometimes I'm running into people who are 70 and they love taking on the social. You need to turn it on at 70, but even after full retirement age, because they don't want to take it out of their 401k and they want to pay off debt or do some or supplement some other things, but they're still working. So they still are contributing to a 401k and they don't want to start taking money out of it, so they go ahead and turn on their Social Security. Those were reasons for doing it before you retire, before you quit work, or early, we might call it.
So again, today's show is called Draw or Delay. So let's shift now and talk about the potential pros and cons of waiting till either full retirement age or even all the way up to age 70.
Yeah, let's talk about maximization. I mean, it's Shangri-La. I mean, it's the greatest thing in the world. It's like your team winning the championship because you can wait till you're 70. After full retirement age, it grows about 8% a year. Recently, they did some new numbers. Do you realize the maximum you can make at 62 if you paid the mostest for the longest? Okay, if you've done that for 35 years, $2,710 is what you can get at 62. The maximum you can get at full retirement age is $3,822. But then if you wait till you're 70, it's now the maximum you could get is $4,873. So going from $2,700 a month to $4,800 a month, that's a good reason to try to wait.
Right.
If it's optional, if it's available, yes. It's better to actually maximize your Social Security. We call it optimize your Social Security because it could be earlier, but maximization is at 70. That's a no-brainer. That's easy.
Right. So there's no point in waiting beyond the age of 70 because the amount of the check will not rise. So
no.
that's important to know.
I jokingly say, I can't do this, folks, okay? But I jokingly say, if you don't want it at 70, take it, give it to me, I'll pay your taxes.
Right.
Because you're not going to get any better. As you work, you're still going to pay FICA, but it's not going to really impact you that much. You're going to be drawing, you're going to enter at that level. So go ahead and take it. Don't delay it. Well, there's a lot of taxes. You could be taxed on all of it. Don't get me wrong. But all of it is really only 85% of it at your regular tax rate. Some people say, oh, I thought I would get taxed 85% of my Social Security. It's not what the law says. You could get taxed on 85% of your social at your regular tax rate.
Right.
So make sure you understand. Yeah,
for sure.
Right.
Well, another huge benefit to possibly delaying is this especially applies if you are married. So let's talk about that because I think a lot of folks think it's an individual situation, individual decision.
Right.
But it really does depend on your family dynamic when the optimal time is for you to claim your Social Security benefit.
Absolutely. If there are two of you, you're married, one of you has a lower Social Security than the other. The larger Social Security, whoever it is the breadwinner. The lower Social Security, for reasons of impact, I call it the throwaway Social Security. Now, it doesn't mean it's unimportant, doesn't mean it's insignificant, But when one of you passes away, according to the rules of the Social Security Administration, that's a throwaway Social Security, because the lower Social Security, regardless of whose it is, that lower is thrown away, goes away, and the breadwinner stays. Therefore, when we're building a portfolio or retirement blueprint and we're focusing on income, what we do is we delve into that and we say, okay, what's the best time for you, not just you alone to optimize and not just you alone to maximize, but how do we work the two Social Securities to optimize how we turn those on? Many times, we turn on, if you can still make it and not drain your outside Social Security money down to zero, we turn on the lower Social Security first, because it then enters the system. It only gets the cost of living raises, and then as that grows, it'll still grow, but we allow at 8% a year the breadwinner to continue to grow as long as you can, maybe to 70. Because then when one of you passes away in a marriage, the lower Social Security goes away, the throwaway Social Security, and the breadwinner stays. A very excellent reason for you to leave it and to not turn it on early. So if you really think about it, if you're married, it may make most sense for one of you to turn it on early and one to turn it on late.
And this is why you have to look at all those puzzle pieces, right? I mean,
you have to look at it.
And it is the math, but there's so many personal factors that far outweigh the math, to your point. Are you single? Are you married? Are you still working? When do you plan on retiring? I mean, there's just so much that goes into this important decision.
Well, and that's the next thing on our list, the psychological reasons, the things you can't put on paper. I have people who come in and say, my dad died at 68. I just know I'm going to die at 68, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and turn my Social Security on as soon as I can. I just, you know, sometimes that's not a good reason.
Right.
You know, I mean, so I understand the reasoning, but that's a psychological reason more than it is a logical reason. Because people are just living longer now, even if your dad did die at 68. But unless something is wrong with you physically and it's a disease that's going to take your life early, you probably need to forget about when you're going to die. Leave that up to God, which we have to do anyway. And you need to turn it on for reasons other than that. Other people say, well, psychologically, I just don't, politically, you might say, I don't think that I think they're gonna start shortening our Social Security. I read a statistic recently that the people in the mid-range from like 30 to 45, 32% of them think they'll never get Social Security.
Wow.
They think it won't even be there, you know? So you might be of that mindset, even though you're earlier. It's a psychological reason. We don't really know. Maybe it's a little political, but you have to play by the rules until they change the rules, okay? And the rules right now, you need to avoid some of those. And we talked about this earlier, but one of the reasons for delaying is, and this is the biggest gotcha I see out there, you turn 62, you think they might take it away from us or they might diminish it, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on.
Right.
I had a guy came in one time, his name was Ralph. He's making $120,000 a year, but his brother told him, you better go down and turn it on at 62. Well, this year, like we talked earlier, when he goes over $22,320, for every $2 over that, he starts paying back $1 of Social Security. He's gonna pay it all back.
Yeah.
Now, they'll make an adjustment at full retirement age, but I've never seen anybody happy with the adjustment that they made. Some reasons for turning it on early, some reasons for turning it on later. You need to have us sit down with you so we can help you decide what's best for you. Could be early, could be late, could be in the middle. But that's something you decide after we show you your options and the ramifications of all your options.
Tom, thank you so much. And again, just a reminder, if you call the Social Security Administration, they are only allowed to give you information. They cannot give you this kind of personalized advice based on your situation. The only way you can get that is by doing something like reaching out and connecting with Tom and the team of Mosley Wealth Management to sit down in the financial planning environment, look at all these different variables, and then help you determine when is the optimal time for you to start drawing your Social Security. That number to call for your complimentary retirement blueprint, 866-709-1462, or again, you're welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. When we come back, what if waiting till later means you might get less? Tom is going to address that question when we return.
Have you ever considered refinancing your retirement? When interest rates are low, you might be able to refinance your home, your car loan, even your credit card rates, because it could help you keep more money each month. Yet, when the interest rates go up, it might make sense to refinance your retirement. Higher interest rates could provide you with income opportunities that you might not be aware of. What works for your portfolio during low interest rates may not work for you when interest rates are high. Find out if a retirement refi could work better for you. Give us a call today and schedule a complimentary Refi Your Retirement review.
Welcome back to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. I'm your host, Kristin Oakley. We have been talking today about draw or delay, the Social Security dilemma. We've gone through the pros and cons of taking it early, the pros and cons of waiting until later. Tom, in addition to people wanting to know when is the optimal time for them to claim Social Security, I know another huge question on a lot of folks' minds is it going to be there for me? And there's a lot of people who are concerned that if they do wait and delay drawing Social Security, that they're going to get less. So what do you say to folks who are concerned about that?
I say to folks who come in, and a lot of people are doing it right now, because they're making so much of the fact that in 2034 they may have to reduce benefits to 75 to 79% of what they're paying out right now. I always say, what can you control? You cannot control. You say, well, we need to elect the right people. Well, we've tried that. How'd that work? You know? I mean, they'll all say that, you know, the other party's the one that's going to kill your social, but when they passed the 2 tax laws for Social Security, there was a Democrat in charge of Congress and a Republican in the White House. Next time there was a Democrat in the White House and Republicans were in charge of Congress, and they started taxing our Social Security. They're all in it together. The question is this: if they do lower Social Security by 20 to 25%, if it does go down $8,000 to $17,000 per person as an average, how are you going to fill in the gap? That's where the retirement blueprint comes in. That's where, when I said it's just the outline, you have to get, it's not the whole puzzle. The whole puzzle has to do with the other investments you have, how they're placed, and if they do drop Social Security by 20 to 25%, how are you going to respond to it? How are you going to draw the money from the other aspects of your portfolio? That's what we do when we build a retirement blueprint for people. Social Security is one part of it, just one part of it.
And it's such an important part,
Yes,
though. So
it
thank you
is.
so much for your dedication to devoting an entire show to this important subject. I'm excited for more folks to get connected with you and the team. And we encourage you, there's never been a better time for you to get your questions answered about your individual situation regarding Social Security or any other aspect of your retirement planning. So reach out, 866-709-1462. We love you, Southern California. Be safe, be happy, be blessed, and we look forward to being back with you next time here at Right on the Money.